the second part of our strategy formulation, corporate strategy. So I will discuss the continuation of the different directional strategies of stability and retrenchment. Okay, so for stability strategies, some corporations may choose this type of strategy by continuing its current activities without any significant change in direction. Although viewed as sometimes as a lack of strategy, the stability family of corporate strategies can be appropriate for a successful corporation operating in a reasonably predictable environment. Now, they are very popular with small business owners who have found a niche and are happy with their success and the manageable size of their firms. Stability strategies can be very useful in the short run, but they can be dangerous if followed for too long. Some of the more popular strategies under the stability strategies are: we have the pause, proceed with caution, no change, and profit. So the first stability strategy is in effect a timeout, an opportunity to rest before continuing a growth or retrenchment strategy. It is a very deliberate attempt to make only incremental improvements until a particular environmental situation changes. It is typically conceived as a temporary strategy to be used until the environment becomes more hospitable, or to enable a temporary strategy to be used until the environment becomes more hospitable, or to enable a company to consolidate its resources after prolonged rapid growth. Okay? The second stability strategy is a decision to do nothing new. That's no change, no? A choice to continue current operations and policies for the foreseeable future. Rarely articulated as a definite strategy, a no change strategy success depends on a lack of significant change in a corporation situation. The relative stability created by the firm's modest competitive position in an industry facing little or no growth encourages the company to continue on its current course, making only small adjustments for inflation in its sales and profit objectives. So there are no obvious opportunities or threats, and the status quo is a viable alternative. Few aggressive new competitors are likely to enter such an industry. The corporation has probably found a reasonably profitable and stable niche for its products. So unless the industry is likely to encourage the company to follow a no change strategy in which the future is expected to continue as an extension of the present. Wala kay laing buhaton, no? That's no change strategy. The last stability strategy, the profit strategy, is a decision to do nothing new in a worsening situation, but instead to act as though the company's problems are only temporary. The profit strategy is an attempt to artificially support profits when a company's sales are declining by reducing investment and short term discretionary expenditures. Rather than announce the company's poor position to shareholders and the investment community at large, top management may be tempted to follow this very seductive approach, blaming the company's problems on a hostile environment such as an anti-business government policies, unethical competitors, finicky customers, and or greedy lenders. Management defers investments and or cuts core business expenses like R&D, maintenance, and advertising to stabilize profits during this period. It may even sell one of its product lines for the cash flow benefits. So the profit strategy is useful only to help a company get through a temporary difficulty. It may also be a way to boost the value of a company in preparation to be acquired or for going public via an initial public offering or an IPO. Unfortunately, the strategy is seductive, and if continued long enough, it will lead to a serious deterioration in a corporation's competitive position. The profit strategy is typically top management's passive, short term, and often self serving response to a difficult situation. And in such situations, it is often better to face the problem directly by choosing a retrenchment strategy instead of the profit strategy. Okay, so for the retrenchment strategies, meanwhile, no, a company, when it has a weak competitive position in some or all of its product lines, resulting in poor performance, typically sales are down and profits are becoming losses. So it is where here that retrenchment strategies are very much applicable. So these strategies impose a great deal of pressure to improve performance. In an attempt to eliminate the weaknesses that are dragging the company down, management may follow one of several retrenchment strategies, ranging from turnaround or becoming a captive company to selling out, bankruptcy, or liquidation. Now, talking about turnaround strategy, this is sometimes called referred to as transformation. It emphasizes the improvement of operational efficiency and is probably most appropriate when a company's problems are pervasive but not yet critical. So, research shows that poorly performing firms in mature industries have been able to improve their performance by cutting costs and expenses and by selling off assets. Okay, so, for these efforts to be something more than a profit protection, the company has to deal with three phases of the effort: contraction, consolidation, and rebirth. Okay, so what is contraction? It is the initial effort to quickly stop the bleeding with a general across-the-board cutback in size and costs. The second phase, consolidation, implements a program to stabilize the now leaner corporation. So, to streamline the company, plans are developed to reduce unnecessary overhead and to make functional activities cost justified. So this is a crucial time for the organization. If the consolidation phase is not conducted in a positive manner, many of the best people leave the organization. On the other hand, an overemphasis in downsizing and cutting costs, coupled with a heavy hand by top management, is usually counterproductive and can actually hurt performance. If, however, all employees are encouraged to get involved in productivity improvements, the firm is likely to emerge from this retrenchment period a much stronger and better organization. Now, the last phase, the rebirth, happens if the company is successful with its efforts and starts growing profitably again. Okay? The second one, the captive company strategy, involves giving up independence in exchange for security. A company with a weak competitive position may not be able to successfully implement a full blown turnaround strategy for a variety of reasons. The industry may not be sufficiently attractive to justify such an effort from either the current management or investor. Nevertheless, a company in this situation faces poor sales and potentially increasing losses unless it takes some action or time. Okay, so in a captive company, management searches for an angel by offering to be a captive company to one of its larger customers or another player in the industry in order to guarantee the company's continued existence. So, in this way, the corporation may be able to reduce the scope of some of its functional activities, thus significantly reducing costs. On the other hand, in the case of selling to a customer, the weaker company gains certainty of sales and production in return for becoming heavily dependent on another firm for most of its sales. The third retrenchment strategy is the sell-out or divestment strategy. So, if a corporation with a weak competitive position in an industry is unable either pull itself up by its bootstraps or to find a customer or competitor to which it can become a captive company, it may have no choice but to sell out. Okay, so the sellout strategy makes sense if management can still obtain a good price for its shareholders and the employees can keep their jobs by selling the entire company to another firm. So the hope is that another company will have the necessary resources and determination to return the company to profitability. On the other hand, if the corporation has multiple business lines and it chooses to sell off a division with low growth potential, this is called divestment. So this was the strategy some companies used when it sold, no, like for example, P&G when it sold more than half of its brands and consolidated others in order to focus on just 65 brands. Yeah, so divestment is often used after a corporation acquires a multi-unit corporation in order to shed the units that do not fit with the corporation's new strategy. The last retrenchment strategy is the bankruptcy or liquidation strategy. Bankruptcy involves giving up management or the company the firm to the courts in return for some settlement of the corporation's obligations. Top management hopes that once the court decides the claims of the company will be stronger and better able to compete in a more attractive industry. In contrast to bankruptcy, which seeks to perpetuate a corporation, liquidation is the termination of the firm. When the industry is unattractive and the company is too weak to be sold as a going concern, management may choose to convert as many sales or saleable assets are possible to cash, which is then distributed to the shareholders after all obligations are paid. Okay, so at times, top management must be willing to select one of these less desirable strategies. Unfortunately, many top managers are unwilling to admit that their company has serious weaknesses for fear that they may be personally blamed. So another activity or tool that we use for corporate strategy is portfolio analysis. So it deals with how individual product lines and business units can gain competitive advantage at the same time. These companies with multiple product lines or business units must also ask themselves how these various products and business units should be managed to boost the overall corporate performance. So it asks the question number one: how much of our time and money should we spend on our best products and business units to ensure that they continue to be successful? And how much of our time and money should we spend developing a new costly product, most of which will never be successful? Okay, so one of the most popular portfolio techniques that we use is the BCG growth share matrix. So this is the Boston Consulting Group. That's BCG growth share matrix. So you have four matrix as you can see in the screen. So you have the question mark, the dog, star, and the cash cow. Okay, so what does these mean? The BCG growth share matrix has some common attributes and therefore common problems with the product line cycles. As a product moves through its perceived life cycle, it is generally categorized into one of four types of the purpose of funding decisions. Question marks. Question marks are sometimes called problem children or the wildcats. These are new products with the potential for success, but you need to provide them with a lot of cash for development. So, if such a product is to gain enough market share to become a market leader, and thus star money must be taken from more mature products and spent on the question mark. Stars, on the other hand, are market leaders, no, that are typically at or nearing the peak of their perceived product life cycle and are able to uh, generate enough cash to maintain their high share of the market and usually contribute to the company's profits. The third the third component of the BCG matrix is the cash cow. No, it typically brings in far more money than is needed to maintain the market share. Now, in this BCG matrix, if maturing or even declining stage of their life cycle, these products are milked for cash that will be invested in new question marks. So, for example, we have advertising and research and development. We reduce them. Apple's iPhone, no, represented more than 60% of Apple revenues, even as sales started falling in 6 years ago. This flagship product of a company provides vast resources that have been poured into the Apple Watch, along others. No, so question marks and unable to obtain dominant market share by the time the industry growth inevitably slows become dogs. Now, dogs have low market share and do not have the potential, usually because they are an attractive industry without a significant market position, to bring in much cash. According to the BCG growth matrix, dogs should be either sold off or managed carefully for the small amount of cash they can generate. A typical example of this is IBM, that sold its PC business to China's Lenovo Group in order to focus on its growing business or services business. Okay, so that is using the portfolio analysis, but portfolio, the BCG matrix. No, although this is a very well-known matrix, okay, it's a very well-known portfolio concept. we have to consider also some of its advantages and disadvantages. Okay, like for example, the limitations of the BCG share matrix include ito yung mga more serious limitations, the use of highs and lows to form four categories is too simplistic. Also, the link between market share and profitability is questionable. The growth rate is only one aspect of industry attractiveness. Product lines or business units are considered only in relation to one competitor, which is the market leader, and market share is only one aspect of the overall competitive position. Now, to consider portfolio analysis as a whole, we have the following advantages and limitations of the said portfolio analysis. Number one, it encourages top management to evaluate each of the corporation's businesses individually and to set objectives and allocate resources for each. Also, it stimulates the use of externally oriented data or to supplement management's judgment. It raises the issue of cash flow availability for use in expansion and growth, and its graphic depiction facilitates communication. On the other hand, the limitations of this method are number one, defining product or market lines is difficult. It suggests the use of standard strategies that can miss opportunities or be impractical. It provides an illusion of scientific rigor when in reality positions are based on subjective judgments. Its value added laden terms, such as cash cow and dog, can lead to self fulfilling prophecies. It is not always clear what makes an industry attractive or where a product line is in its life cycle, and naively following the prescriptions of portfolio model may actually reduce corporate profits if they are used inappropriately. Okay? Now, in managing a strategic alliance portfolio, just as a product line or business unit form a portfolio of investments, the top management must constantly juggle to ensure the best return on the corporation's invested money. Strategic alliances can also be viewed as a portfolio of investments, investments that are often in terms of money, time, and energy. Okay, so managing groups of strategic alliances is primarily the job of the business unit. Its decisions may escalate, however, to the corporate level. So there may be two or four tasks of multidimensional alliance management that are necessary for successful alliance portfolio management. Number one, developing and implementing a portfolio strategy for each business unit and a corporate policy for managing all of the alliance of the entire company. Managing the alliance portfolio in terms of the implementing business unit strategies and corporate strategy developments and policies. Coordinating the portfolio to obtain synergies and obtain or avoid conflicts among alliances, and establishing an alliance management system to support other tasks of multi-alliance management. Okay? Corporate parenting, on the other hand, also termed as parenting strategy, is in contrast views a corporation in terms of resources and capabilities that can be used to build business unit value as well as generate synergy across business units. Now, multi-business companies create value by influencing or parenting the businesses they own. The best parent companies create more value from than any of their rivals would if they have owned the same businesses. So these companies have what we call parenting advantage. Now, the search for appropriate corporate strategy involves three analytical tools, no? Okay, this is how we create a corporate parenting strategy. Number one, examine each business unit and or firm in the case of acquisition in terms of its strategic factors. Number two, examine business units or target firms in which or in terms of areas in which firms or performance can be achieved. And number three, analyze how well the parent corporation fits with a business unit or target firm. Now, moving on, a horizontal strategy is a corporate strategy that cuts across business unit boundaries to build synergy between business units and to improve the competitive position of one or more business units. Multi-point competition, on the other hand, happens when large multi-business corporations compete against each other or other large multi-business firms in a number of markets. These multi-point competitors are firms that compete with each other not only in one business unit but also in a number of business units. So at one point or another, a cash-rich competitor may choose to build its own market share in a particular market to the disadvantage of another corporation's business unit. Okay, so as a parting word though for the different strategies, corporate strategy is primarily about the choice of direction for the firm as a whole. It deals with the three key issues that a corporation faces. So the firm's overall orientation toward growth, stability, or retrenchment, the industries or markets in which the firm competes through its products and business units, and the manner in which management coordinates activities and transfers resources and cultivates capabilities among product lines and business units. So these issues are dealt with through directional strategy, portfolio analysis, and corporate parenting. Managers must constantly examine their corporation's entire portfolio of products, businesses, and opportunities if they were planning to reinvest all of its capital. This is the end of our second part of the strategy formulation, corporate strategies.